All right. Hello and welcome to my session. My name is Austin Estes. I'm the program director for the COVID Relief Data Project at the Council of Chief State School Officers. And today I'm excited to talk to you about some of our research on how states are supporting academic acceleration in math using their pandemic relief funds. The Council of Chief State School Officers, or CCSSO, is a nonpartisan nationwide nonprofit organization of public officials who head departments of elementary and secondary education in the states. I'm also excited today to be joined by Dr. Jenna Chasson, Deputy Superintendent of the Office of Teaching and Learning at the Louisiana Department of Education. Dr. Chasson and I will be responding to your questions in the chat space during the live Q&A portion. And please remember to download our handouts from the resource space on this website. Hello and welcome to my session. My name is Austin Estes, and I'm the program director of the COVID Relief Data Project at the Council of Chief State School Officers. And today I'm excited to be talking to you about some of our research on how states are using their pandemic relief funds to support academic acceleration in math. The Council of Chief State School Officers, or CCSSO, is a nonpartisan nationwide nonprofit organization of public officials who head departments of elementary and secondary education in the states. I'm excited today to be joined by Dr. Jenna Chasson, Deputy Superintendent of the Office of Teaching and Learning at the Louisiana Department of Education. Dr. Chasson and I will be able to respond to your questions in the chat space during the live Q&A portion of today's presentation. And please don't forget to download any handouts and resources on this space on the website following the presentation. The COVID Relief Data Project is an initiative to study and share how states are supporting the pandemic recovery effort using the 10% state set-aside allocated to state education agencies through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or ESSER. Through this project, CCSSO is working to document trends, promising practices, and student outcomes to illustrate the impact of these state ESSER investments. And if you go to our website at ccssso.org/ESSER funds, you can explore examples, reports, and videos that address topics such as student well-being, teacher recruitment and retention, high-impact tutoring, and more. As a quick refresher, ESSER was first authorized in March of 2020 through the CARES Act, and through two subsequent rounds of funding, ultimately allocated $190 billion to support relief and recovery in K-12 schools across the country. While most of these funds were directly allocated for use by school districts, up to 10% could be set aside at the state level to support statewide activities led by the state education agency. And while this is only 10% of the total amount, this amounts to about $19 billion in largely flexible funds that could be used to address statewide recovery priorities. So how are states using these funds? When we look across all three buckets of funding across the country, we see that states are primarily using their ESSER state reserve funds to prioritize support for academic recovery. This includes more than $4 billion that states have invested in tutoring and accelerated learning initiatives, more than $3 billion for out-of-school time opportunities, including before school, after school, and summer learning programs, $1.4 billion for curriculum and instruction, and more than $1 billion for high-quality remote learning opportunities. While states are primarily focusing their investments and their efforts on academic recovery, recognizing that that is one of the priority needs for students recovering from the pandemic, they're also using these relief funds to support other urgent priorities, such as recruitment and retention of educators, which an investment that totals about $1.5 billion, and support for student and staff well-being and connection at about $1.1 billion. As time goes on, we're getting a clearer picture of the pandemic impact on student learning and what it will take to address some of the unfinished learning resulting from the pandemic impacts. In particular, student proficiency in math has declined precipitously since the start of the pandemic. I know we're all very familiar at this point with last year's NAEP report, and data from the nation's report card shows a 5-point drop in math scores for fourth graders and an 8-point drop for eighth graders between 2019 and 2022. Continued targeted support for academic recovery in math can help close this gap and get students caught up to where they were before the pandemic. When we look at state-level ESSER spending on math recovery, we see 5 broad focal areas. One area where we see a lot of state investment is in professional development, with support for topics such as leveraging evidence-based strategies for remote and blended learning, providing free opportunities for in-service teachers to earn specialist certifications in math, reinforcing core instructional strategies, and facilitating peer learning collaboratives so that educators across their states can learn from one another. Another area where we're seeing a lot of state focus and investment is in high-impact tutoring. Research shows that tutoring is most effective when it's delivered in groups of no more than 4 students, at least 3 times a week during the school day, and when students have the opportunity to build a relationship with a consistent and well-trained tutor. And many states are building upon this research base to design and implement programs that aim to provide high-impact tutoring at scale. Many of these programs target tutoring in math, either as part of a dual focus on math and reading, or an explicit focus recognizing the impact that the pandemic has had specifically on math recovery. There are a number of strategies that states are employing to support tutoring, including providing grants to local education agencies to help them recruit tutors in their community, providing training for tutors on high-impact strategies that they can leverage in these tutoring sessions, providing high-quality instructional materials that can be used by tutors, and in some cases, procuring licenses or partnering with providers that offer on-demand virtual tutoring services that students can access in and out of the classroom. The third area of state investment is support for the adoption and use of high-quality instructional materials. High-quality instructional materials are standards-aligned materials that incorporate research-based best practices in the relevant content area. And they often include implementation support, including educative teacher guides and inclusive practices. And when these instructional materials are coupled with curriculum-based professional learning and ongoing support, they have the potential to improve academic outcomes for students. All across the country, we're seeing states investing in high-quality instructional materials using their ESSER funds by procuring statewide licenses for textbooks and digital learning tools, providing grants to districts so that they can purchase their own instructional materials that are aligned to state-determined standards of quality, and by offering professional learning opportunities so that educators know how to leverage tools in the classroom. Another national trend that we're seeing is a focus on support for after-school and summer learning programs so that schools can leverage additional time outside of the classroom for academic recovery. Under the American Rescue Plan, which was the third allocation of funding for the ESSER program, states were required to set aside 2% of their total allocation for after-school and summer opportunities. But what we're seeing in our data is that many states are going beyond this requirement and have invested additional funds to support out-of-school time learning opportunities. After-school and summer learning programs serve a variety of needs. Many of them are focused on enrichment and social-emotional health, but also states have dedicated a large portion of funds specifically targeting academic recovery and out-of-school time. And these academic-focused programs are incorporating high-impact tutoring outside of the classroom, as well as other intensive small group instructional support. And then the last trend that I want to highlight today is that states are using their ESSER funds to support the adoption and use of assessments to better target supports for students, with the larger primarily focused on diagnostic and formative assessments to equip teachers to monitor student progress and support targeted instructional interventions. In some cases, these tools are coupled with professional development and ongoing support to ensure effective use in the classroom and to make sure that there's alignment with other school-wide and district-wide support strategies. These recovery investments and priorities vary considerably from state to state, depending on the state's priorities and approach to academic recovery. but I want to quickly share a few examples that illustrate the different roles that states are playing to support recovery in math specifically. In North Dakota, the Department of Public Instruction is using funding from ESSER 3 to pilot a blended learning program focused on math acceleration. And this program is being implemented in partnership with the Central Regional Education Laboratory. The Greater Math in North Dakota program is supporting 8 school districts to use technology to improve math proficiency for students in grade 3 through 8. Participating districts have convened teams of administrators, teachers, and instructional specialists who are attending regular trainings to understand and apply evidence-based practices in the classroom. Meanwhile, in Nebraska, the State Department of Education is using its ESSER funds to purchase a statewide license for Zern's online math acceleration tool. That tool uses technology to support students to meet grade level standards in math. And a quasi-experimental study conducted by Zern shows that frequent users in Nebraska had 2.5 times growth on state math assessments compared to non-frequent users, and that proficiency increases were in the double digits for Black and Latino students, students eligible for free and reduced lunch, and for English learners. And then in Massachusetts, the state is using ESSER funds to scale up the effective Acceleration Academy model, which was first piloted a decade ago and has demonstrated positive outcomes for students by leveraging pockets of unused time during winter, spring, and summer breaks to provide additional instructional support for students in grades 3 through 10. Participating students that are involved in the Acceleration Academy program are taught in groups of no more than 12 by highly effective teachers who are recruited from across the district and even across the state. Recognizing that ESSER is both an unprecedented investment in K-12 schools, but also a one-time relief program, state education agencies are working to measure the impact of their ESSER investments to understand how these programs are supporting student recovery and to inform future plans around sustainability. To date, more than 30 states have developed public reports or dashboards that show to the public how local education agencies are using their local allotment. And this information helps equip stakeholders to understand how districts are prioritizing their recovery investments. Our research also shows that states have collectively invested more than $350 million to support data and reporting. And that includes state-commissioned studies and evaluations of ESSER impact. These efforts are already demonstrating that recovery investments are paying off. As we approach the end of the ESSER program, states are beginning to consider strategies to learn from these large-scale recovery investments and sustain what's working in their states. As I just mentioned, several states are working to document the impact of their ESSER-funded recovery programs and to tell the story with stakeholders, policymakers, and other interested parties in their states. They're also working to build coherence by integrating evidence-based practices into existing systems of support. For example, some states and districts are already seeing better outcomes from students who are participating in high-impact tutoring during the school day when compared to other commonly used interventions. And so they're exploring ways to sustain these tutoring initiatives beyond the lifespan of ESSER through designated intervention blocks and existing funding that was supporting other strategies that were less effective. Another strategy we're seeing is braiding and blending state and federal dollars. Several states have allocated state funding to supplement some of the federal recovery funding, which gives them a little bit more flexibility to determine when and how to sunset programs. And additionally, existing federal title programs can often be used more flexibly than they are currently. And districts might have the opportunity to use the lessons learned from the investments they made with their relief dollars to better direct existing funds towards more evidence-based practices. And finally, we've heard from a number of states that are using their one-time ESSER funds to build the capacity of regional intermediaries and local leaders through a train-the-trainer model, equipping them to understand and deliver trainings on evidence-based practices beyond the lifespan of the ESSER grant. At CCSSO, we're working on a report about the ways that states are supporting math recovery after the pandemic, and that resource will be available later this fall. I encourage you to check out our website, ccsso.org/ESSER funds, which is where that report will be posted when it is available. In the meantime, that website includes a number of other resources and state examples to illustrate the ways that states are using their ESSER funds to support recovery for students who have been most impacted by the pandemic. And with that, I conclude my presentation, and I will hand it over to Dr. Jenna Chasson, who will talk about some of the work that she's been leading in Louisiana.
Hi, I am Jenna Chasson, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Deputy Superintendent for the Louisiana Department of Education. Today, I am thrilled to share with you all more information about Louisiana's Math Refresh. Our Math Refresh work is grounded in our mission that Louisiana students will have improved math outcomes through high quality instruction and timely proactive interventions from an effective teacher who is supported by leaders and families. I wanted to just share a little bit of our state assessment data, our LEAP results, because we have seen, as many other states have seen, that decline from COVID, but really happy to report that we are seeing results since that COVID slide that occurred a few years ago. And our most recent results show some more progress that we really believe is due to our Math Refresh work. So we are really pleased to see some of these initial outcomes and really know that this year is a year to just increase our foot on the gas when it comes to our math initiatives that I'll be highlighting here today. And then finally sharing about how we use our ESSER funding to support these initiatives and consider the sustainability of them as well. One other data point I wanted to call out that we're especially interested in here in Louisiana is what we see here in our most recent test results, but something that we've really seen historically. And it's this slide from our 3rd and 4th graders through 8th grade. And so we can see over time in this particular grade band that our students' math grade level proficiency greatly declines from 3rd and 4th grade through 8th grade. So this is something we've been super interested in as we've considered how we're spending our ESSER funds and what we are doing to improve math outcomes as a state. And so we've grounded our work around math in 4 key pillars. The first of which is to really prioritize high quality grade level core math instruction for all of our students. The second of which is to provide timely proactive intervention. This is what we think of as those just-in-time supports that really define what acceleration in math looks and sounds like. We also have really come around this idea that our educators need ongoing professional learning and proactive planning to really meet the needs of students, whether that's during core instruction or during what's happening during that additional time support. We also know the importance of our families, our caregivers, and our communities. They really should know about their children's progress, and they really should be aware of how they can support their child's math learning journey. And so our first pillar is that high quality grade level instruction. We have rolled out our Math Refresh really with the idea of refreshing math in 2 ways. The first of which is refreshing our math approach. So our approach to how we teach mathematics, which is really one now around this idea of acceleration and accelerated learning. And the second is to refresh our math materials. So we have used high quality instructional materials here in Louisiana for quite some time. And a lot of our materials that were rated at the highest level of quality through our own state level instructional materials review process archived this past year. And so it was an incredible opportunity for us as a state to really contribute a large amount of ESSER funding to refreshing our math materials to make sure that we're not only using high quality instructional materials, but we're using the best and the most current high quality instructional materials, many of which include accelerating learning as part of that curriculum. And so we've really spent a lot of time, money, and effort in refreshing our math materials to make sure they align with that approach. We also have spent ESSER funding on creating our own Accelerate Math resources. Early on in the pandemic, when we were searching for resources, we really had a hard time finding resources, whether it was within HQIM or outside of it, that fit the needs of our students with that true accelerating math mindset and approach. And so we used ESSER funding to work with teacher leader advisors across our state who are teachers in classrooms who apply and go through a selection process to work with us here at the department. And we created our Accelerate Math resources, which really serve as exemplary tutoring and intervention supports for students that really align with and work well with the HQIM that teachers use during that core instruction. So we wanted to make sure that the materials that were being used during core instruction and during those outside additional times, such as intervention and tutoring, were all equally as high quality. And so we made these exemplar Accelerate Math resources that have been used for the past several years, and a lot of our educators will continue to use this year. We also used ESSER funding for ZERN statewide access, professional development, and support. And we really understood that ZERN was a great way to supplement or use as core. It is rated at the highest level from our own statewide instructional materials review process. And so it really has been a great partnership to be able to provide that statewide access. And we've seen some incredible results through our impact study work with ZERN. And so that will continue as well, funded by ESSER for this upcoming year. We also really contributed a large amount of funding towards summer learning opportunities and worked with our school systems to build robust summer learning programs the past several summers and paid particular attention to what was happening during that summer learning time. We produced and released a lot of guidance around what materials could be used, including those Accelerate Math resources, including ZERN. So we really dedicated funding and guidance for both summer learning, for tutoring within the day and outside of the day, and really called attention and highlighted the importance of using really high quality resources and materials during all learning time. This slide just really identifies what accelerating math learning is to us here as a state. We felt early on in COVID that accelerate was a new buzz term. It was something that everybody wanted to talk about. Accelerate, don't remediate. But we had to get really crystal clear on what that meant to us as a state so that we could best communicate it with our educators. And so we've done just that, really tried to emphasize that forward movement in mathematics, making sure that all of our learners have daily access to grade level learning, and that math instruction across settings is all connected to core, and that it doesn't feel piecemeal or disconnected, so that kids really engage in a learning progression for math that makes sense and that builds them over time. And so we've also had to really be clear about what it doesn't look like, because we know that there are a lot of math practices that are just entrenched in classrooms that really aren't the best for kids. And so our educators deserve to learn about that and really deserve to feel empowered about what does work for kids and to be supported in doing that work. These are just a few of our key findings from our ZERN impact study that I wanted to highlight here, because I think our work with ZERN has just been incredibly important to us over the last several years. And again, I'm really excited about what that will look like for us as a state this upcoming year. And we really took the plunge with that ZERN statewide contract, really just said this is a great use of our ESSER funding and it's something that our students really need. So the majority of our school systems have chosen to engage in that state level rostering and to utilize ZERN. And we've really defined consistency as that 3 lessons per week mark. And the results through our impact study have really been amazing to see. And what's so cool about this, and what I know has really won the attention of a lot of our school system leaders, is that this is our impact study. It's here based with Louisiana students, based on our state assessment here in Louisiana. And so we found that elementary and middle school students who consistently use Zern Math scored significantly higher on our 2022 state assessment than their matched peers. We also found that the impact was the greatest for our students not yet meeting mastery, which is our level of proficiency here as a state. And so this is important to note, because these are our students that a lot of times our educators really aren't sure what to do, because their gaps are so large that it can be really difficult to meet all of their needs. My favorite data point is that 70% of students at the lowest level of math achievement who consistently use Zern Math improved their achievement level, compared to just 45% of students who started at the same level but did not use Zern. So that's just an incredible result. So I wanted to make sure to highlight some of these key findings, and it's been really important to us as a state to make sure that we are measuring outcomes, especially measuring those outcomes for initiatives and programming that we use our ESSER funding on. This is just a snapshot of some of our Accelerate tutoring resources that are all available on our website that our educators have used really from the beginning. This is something we began making at the height of the pandemic, and we pushed out, as many as we could at a time through the hard work of people here at the department and our teacher leader advisors across the state. And our educators were just thrilled to have something high quality to use alongside their core materials. Also wanted to highlight a few things around professional learning. So professional learning is one of our pillars for our Math Refresh Comprehensive Strategic Plan, because we know that our teachers really deserve to understand how to accelerate learning in their classrooms. And we really know that that is a heavy lift that we are asking for teachers to know and be able to meet the needs of individual students, knowing that they are at, they have more difficulty than ever, more challenges, more gaps than ever before. And so really being able to do that is a heavy lift. And we know that it's going to take ongoing professional learning to make sure our teachers are supported in doing this incredible work that's in front of them. And so we've done 2 things. We have worked with our state legislature this past legislative session to pass 2 acts. One requires our teacher education preparation program candidates to receive instruction on foundational numeracy skills. Our math teacher competencies that are currently in policy are very broad and generic. And so our candidates exiting our teacher preparation programs are really leaving at different levels of true preparation for teaching mathematics. And so by really refreshing what is in those teacher competencies and policy and working hand in hand with our teacher preparation providers, we're going to ensure more consistency and more rigorous coursework and understanding of mathematics for our teacher candidates as they prepare to become math teachers. So we're really excited about that bill. The second act that was passed requires numeracy professional development for our existing teachers. And so both of these really work hand in hand. We consider these sister pieces of legislation. We also know that we have a lot of teachers right now, whether certified or uncertified teachers, who may not have all of the math content knowledge that they currently need to best serve students, especially using their high quality instructional materials. We want them to really know and understand enough of the math content to be able to use those materials well and really understand the vertical progression of our math standards. And so this will require numeracy professional development for all of our 4th through 8th grade math teachers in the state. And so when we looked across at all of the professional development opportunities that exist, we did not find that there was something that was a perfect match to meet the needs of our Louisiana math standards, of our math teachers. And so this is something that we will dedicate ESSER funding to, working through a process to identify higher education institution vendors to help us develop this math professional development that will then be required for our 4th through 8th grade teachers. with the long-term idea that we will own and be the platform for these teachers to access this professional development. So that's really us thinking about sustainability of ESSER funding, and also, using that to make a difference in our teacher preparation programs for the future as well. We also, once again, know that families are our partners in this work. And so we've spent time, energy, money developing our summer family engagement toolkit and some grab and go family resources, all of which are available on our website, understanding that a lot of learning loss occurs during the summer months, and knowing that, a lot of families chose to send their children to summer learning programs and tutoring offerings at the beginning of the pandemic and then immediately afterwards. And now we know that maybe some of that sense of urgency has left, but our students still have a lot of gaps to fill. And so really knowing that we probably have less families choose summer programming, we wanted to put that in the hands of families. We wanted them to have great resources that they could use. And so our summer family engagement toolkit was a way for our school systems and schools to use social media, newsletters, email communication to reach out to their families and engage them around both literacy and math resources. And this is just a snapshot in our math library of some of our family resources that we've created. And I wanted to share with you all just a snapshot of our ESSER spending. So 3 categories here that we have spent over $250 million on high quality instructional materials. Again, that's a refreshing of those materials that we know is so important. Over $220 million on summer learning and nearly $130 million on high dosage tutoring. I also wanted to leave you all with a link here on this last slide to our dashboard, which is our public facing transparency dashboard, so that anyone can go online and see EPIC, our education progress and investments chart that shows some of our goal setting, but it also shows our ESSER investments and outcomes. And so you can see with our incentive funding, so with our state set aside, what we flowed out through school systems, but you could also see by school system what was spent on the various categories, including the categories that I just highlighted. So this has been a great tool for us to use at the state level, but also for our individual school systems and their community members and families to be able to see how their school system is spending those ESSER funds and what outcomes are desired and then reached as a result. And so thank you all for joining us today. Please feel free to join us next for our live question and answer session with both Austin and I.
All right. Hi, everybody. Unfortunately, Dr. Chasson was not able to join us today for the Q&A, but if anybody has any questions for her about the work that Louisiana is leading, I'm happy to relay some of those questions to her. But now we can open it up if folks have any questions about the presentation or any of the material. While folks are thinking of questions, would also be curious to hear how ESSER implementation is going in your states and communities. Have there been any effective uses of funds? Are you using the COVID relief money to support strategies like high impact tutoring or purchasing high quality instructional materials that have been really effective in the classroom? If you have any ideas, would love to see those in the chat platform. Oh, I do see one question. Is there a working hypothesis from the Department of Education in Louisiana for why proficiency declined as grade level increased in math? Unfortunately, since Dr. Chasson is not able to join us today for Q&A, I'm not able to answer that question, but I can share her email address, and she said that she would be more than happy to answer questions via email. But it is Jenna, so JENNA .Chasson, CHIASSON @LA.gov. and she'd be happy to respond to that question. Otherwise, if you can chat your email, I can share that with her to follow up with you. I'm also seeing a question from Virginia about how state spending will be evaluated. And that's a really interesting question. There are reporting requirements under the ESSER program where states have to report data on spending up to the federal government. But one thing that we've been seeing across states is that many of them have started doing their own reporting and have released interactive, regularly updated ESSER spending dashboards so that members of the public can access information about how districts are using their ESSER funding. And a number of states have also commissioned large-scale research initiatives in partnership with universities and research institutions in their states, and are working to evaluate some of their big bets, so to speak. So there are some projects underway in states like Connecticut and North Carolina that are evaluating the use of their state ESSER money. And then a question about whether states will continue to invest in evaluating their programs once ESSER funds are no longer part of the picture. That's kind of hard to say. I know many states have built capacity at the state level for evaluating impact, not just of their ESSER funding, but of all initiatives and investments. And I imagine that work will continue. And many states are also building the state level data and research infrastructure as well. And it looks like we are getting to the end of our live broadcast. So thank you all for joining us.